Hey everyone, Darkmage01 here. Welcome to my combat guide for Elemental Adventure. In this guide, I am going to be covering tips and tricks for fighting with every element and sub-ability in Elemental Adventure. This includes the overview of each element, different stat builds and playstyles, and finally, some combos, tips, and tricks you can use with each sub-ability. Due to the wide range of content in this guide, I recommend viewing the timestamps to view the element you want to learn about. Also, if you are interested in the damage statistics or general info about each elemental move, I recommend viewing my showcase guides before watching this one. As I will be focusing less on how moves function on paper, and will focus more on how they are used in combat. You can find links to these guides in the description. Please keep in mind that the subject of this video is 1 versus 1 combat, and not team fighting or raiding. In addition to my own knowledge, I will also be sharing information from notable experts within the community such as Gray1FX, who is arguably one of the best rock elementals of all time, Thundersparksdown, who is the current #1 liquid elemental, and also arguably the greatest liquid of all time, and Hunter of the Desert as my expert flame user. Let's get into it. Before we dive into the specifics of each of the elements, first we will go over general concepts when fighting that can be applied to any element you use. The first tip I want to talk about is playing defensive when you are not in an advantageous state. This means that if your health is lower than your opponent, you should not be rushing them. Instead, you should be playing passive and conserve stamina to dodge their attacks until you have regened your health points up to full. Only look for punish opportunities if they present themselves to you, and never look for trades when your opponent has more health than you. The next tip is reading their habits. This one is sort of broad, but being able to read their dodging habits can lead to great punish opportunities, and having a general idea of the time intervals they typically use moves will allow you to use an ability just before theirs as a prediction. People often are a lot more predictable than they realize, and will use a common move such as rock throw, rock punch, swing kick, fly kick, freeze, liquid wave, whirlwind, etc., in a rhythm or pattern. I would also suggest counting stamina or cooldowns in your head, and guessing their stats based on the first initial hits during a spar. The game plan you take versus each element often is stat specific, so being able to guess after a few hits what their stats roughly are will allow you to adjust appropriately. From there, having a general idea of how much stamina they are using will allow you to press your advantage better, and knowing their cooldowns will give you a good frame of reference on when to engage or not engage. One way to get better at this is by studying or using the damage calculators that can be found on the Elemental Adventure wiki linked in the description. Lastly, the final tip is to be mindful of the order you buy your items in, as your inventory cannot currently be rearranged in-game. If your playstyle or build relies on switching between gear, items, a cleaner, more thought-out inventory will go a long way. Items that you buy will be placed in your inventory from left to right. Rock is a moveset that excels with patient play, due to their mixture of offensive and defensive capabilities. Rock playstyle is often dictated by whether steel, magma, or dust is chosen as the sub-element. Steel is often used with a long-range playstyle due to steel's abilities excelling at longer ranges but failing when in close-quarter combat. Magma's playstyle tends to focus around controlling space and defeating their opponents through slow and calculated gameplay. Lastly, dust playstyle excels at rushing down your opponents due to its incredible close-range abilities and fantastic defensive options. That being said, regardless of sub-ability, getting comfortable with the entirety of the moveset is critical to success as a rock elemental. When in neutral, meaning nobody has any clear advantage and distance is between you and your opponent, your main idea should include poking your opponent with rock throw, predicting their movement to hit them with rock punch, and using rock armor and rock wall whenever possible to maximize defensive utility. When fighting in neutral for steel users, plate shot and double plate shot should always be utilized when available, due to the power of steel at long range and its ability tracking properties. To track plate shots easier on your target, it is generally preferred to aim for their legs with your cursor as it tends to activate the ability tracking feature more consistently. Magma users should use Magma Pool in neutral to control space and force your opponents to dash, along with follow-up moves predicting where your opponent will dash out of the pool. However, Rock expert Gray1FX suggests using Magma Pool twice or 3 times near the start of the match, without trying to follow it up into a combo, to get a better understanding of how your opponent often dashes out of it, as most people have a direction bias that they tend to dash towards. So it is important to keep in mind if they are more likely to dash closer or further from you. The most important part is to refrain from spamming these options, as they are far more likely to work if you place them purposefully when your opponent is already in a panic, and when they haven't already been dodging your attempted combos since full HP. A little patience using magma in neutral will go a long way. When in close range combat, a fantastic technique with rock is the horizontal rock punch. To perform the horizontal rock punch, place your cursor on the back of your character, and use rock punch while turned towards the sky. It takes practice to get comfortable doing this, but it is imperative to being successful with rock, especially against other elements. This technique can only be done while twin hammers are equipped. Dust users lack abilities that are effective from long range, as Dust Slash is easily evaded and Dust Storm is blocked by any shielding move from long range and has inconsistent ability tracking. Instead, these moves excel in close quarters combat and should be used accordingly. Dust Barrier is often underutilized but is currently the best defensive move in the game due to the speed in which it can be activated and deactivated, so make sure to use this move to its full potential if possible. Rock Cuffs is often seen as the ace of Rock's moveset due to its ability to instigate large damage combos. For this reason, I am going to spend a lot of time talking about this move in particular. It is important to note that both regular shields as well as shielding abilities can negate Rock Cuff stun, so baiting and punishing your opponent is often seen as a superior setup for a Rock Cuff hit rather than relying on prediction to land one while your opponent is actively moving. However, using Rock Cuffs outside of purely a punish tool is still a fantastic option and should be utilized if you have a great grasp on prediction. To aim your Rock Cuffs on a moving target, you should never aim directly at your opponent. Instead, you want to place your cursor where you think they are going to be, and not where they currently are. Standard Rock Cuff combos often differ depending on two things: where on the opponent's body you hit the cuff, and the current sub-ability being used. When hitting the opponent in the upper portion of their body, they are still able to move their character around and actively dodge certain attacks. It is generally seen as the best option regardless of sub-ability to follow up this scenario with Rockquake, due to its high damage and large hitboxes. However, a prepared opponent can move towards the rock user dodging this move completely in some scenarios or purposely only getting hit by one pillar of Rockquake to potentially counter-punish the user. It is important to mix up your punish game for this reason with other moves such as Rock Punch, Magma Shuriken, Dust Slash, Dust Storm, or a combination of rock moves if available. On the other hand, hitting your opponent on the lower half of their body will fully restrict their movement for the duration of the stun, leading to more flexibility and consistency in your follow-up moves. Common combos after a rock cuff on the legs include but are not limited to some of these suggestions. For Dust users: 1. Rock Cuffs, Rock Punch, Dust Storm. 2. Rock Cuffs, Rockquake, Dust Storm. And 3. Rock Cuffs, Dust Slash, Dust Storm are common combos utilized. Dust Storm in particular is a fantastic high damage finishing move from close range due to its massive hitbox that comes out quickly upon activation. However, due to the long animation of Dust Storm, this move is best reserved as a close range finishing move due to leaving yourself open if used otherwise. Please note that Dust users have the most potential damage possible from a successful Rock Cuff. For Magma users, some combos include: 1. Rock Cuffs, Rock Punch, Twin Hammer / 2. Rock Cuffs, Rockquake, Magma Wave. And 3. Rock Cuffs, Magma Shuriken, Magma Wave are all viable options. Steel users have the least amount of potential from a successful Rock Cuff, but common options include: 1. Rock Cuffs, Rock Punch, Twin Hammer / or 2. Rock Cuffs, Rockquake, Double Plate Shot. The final tips I want to talk about for Rock that Expert Gray 1FX talked about greatly is using cover to your advantage. Rock moves themselves provide a lot of defensive cover for the user, including Rock Punch and Rockquake. It is also important to note the timing on when moves can pass through these sources of cover, as it can be used both for the user and against the user. Rock builds. Here are some Rock stat distributions that I recommend. For beginner Steel users, I recommend 339 Strength, 262 Defense, 199 Stamina with Rock Cuff Scroll. For more advanced Steel users, I recommend 339 Strength, 287 Defense, 174 Stamina with Rock Cuff Scroll. Expert Gray 1FX's recommended Steel stats are 336 Strength, 335 Defense, 129 Stamina with Rock Cuff Scroll. For Steel users who prefer a tankier build, I recommend 336 Strength, 350 Defense, 114 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. For beginner Magma users, I recommend 360 Strength, 241 Defense, 199 Stamina with Rock Cuff Scroll. For advanced Magma users, I recommend 360 Strength, 266 Defense, 174 Stamina with Rock Cuff Scroll. Or 360, 290 Defense, 150 Stamina with Rock Cuff Scroll. Expert Gray 1FX's recommended Magma stats are 360 strength, 317 defense, 123 stamina with rock cuff scroll. For beginner dust users I recommend 350 strength, 276 defense, 174 stamina with rock cuff scroll. Or 339 strength, 287 defense, 174 stamina with rock cuff scroll. For more advanced dust users I recommend 350 strength, 290 defense, 160 stamina with rock cuff scroll. Or 339 strength, 301 defense, 160 stamina with rock cuff scroll. For expert dust users that play with great stamina management I recommend 350 strength, 317 defense, 133 stamina with rock cuff scroll. Expert Grey 1FX's recommended dust stats are 350 strength, 275 defense, 175 stamina with rock cuff scroll. For dust users who prefer a tankier build I recommend 336 strength, 340 defense, 124 stamina with rock cuff scroll. Liquid is a versatile moveset that requires a balance of patience, tactical thinking, and swift reaction times. As a liquid elemental, your capabilities change based on the chosen sub-element, frost and plant. Each sub-element has its unique playstyle, requiring specific tactics and strategies for mastery. Liquid elementals in neutral should look to poke their opponents with splash whenever possible due to its excellent ability tracking that puts constant pressure on their opponents from range. They should also seek to use boomerang to provide chip damage from long range, but please note that when boomerang hitbox is active the user cannot perform any other actions leaving them vulnerable. In close quarter combat Liquid should seek to use Liquid Wave at close range whenever possible in addition to baiting and punishing their opponents with stun moves such as freeze or ensnare. Keep in mind that there is a small window where ensnare is able to be avoided by jumping. After successfully landing one of these stun moves, I recommend using the following combos, but note that these are just a few possibilities for following up a stun. For either frost or plant use freeze or ensnare, Liquid Spout with 2 slashes, then immediately Liquid Wave. Another option is freeze or ensnare, close range Liquid Burst, then immediately Liquid Wave. Liquid is a very offensive and defensive cycling element, meaning the moveset is geared towards fluent changes between offense and defense. Liquid elementals have incredible capabilities to turn their defense into offense thanks to Barrage for frost elementals and Liquid Block. These moves in particular are fantastic for stalling out your opponent when you are at a disadvantage and regenerate hit points due to being invulnerable to direct damage for the duration of the move. In addition, these moves can be used in the air by climbing structures or generated structures from other elements such as rock to further their defensive prowess. No matter the sub-element or playstyle, comfort with the entirety of the moveset is crucial for success as a liquid elemental. Use each move strategically, whether it's freeze, Liquid Wave, barrage spikes, or ensnare, to secure victory in your battles. Each battle will be a test of your adaptability and understanding of your capabilities. Strive to keep evolving your strategy, and the path to mastery will unfold. I am now going to let my resident liquid expert Thundersparksdown take it from here.
Aggressive Frost User. As an aggressive Frost user, you always want to be in your opponent's personal space. This positioning enables you to hit waves with ease, punish their moves with freeze, and increases your chance to land more barrage spikes, among other things. This aggressive playstyle requires constant baiting and punishing, necessitating a significant amount of stamina. Only retreat after a failed bait or punish attempt. Remember, even if a punishment fails, you still have a plethora of useful moves in your kit. Defensive Liquid playstyle. You should always stay on the defensive and never rush your opponent unless you have a significant advantage. Wait for your adversaries to instigate the fight to conserve stamina and push them back further effectively. This playstyle requires great patience, so it may not suit you if you lack this trait. Pure Trading playstyle. There isn't much to say besides that you will essentially be using the same move as others since you're meant to have more HP/strength to provide you with more health after the exchanges occur. Also, against other elements, your main goal is to tank a hit and try freeze punish or liquid wave punish. Long range liquid playstyle. Maintain the greatest distance possible, but remain just in range so that certain moves can hit without you being punished or traded with. For instance, wave from a distance, and stay far enough that another liquid player can't wave you back unless they get closer. You need to learn to abuse boomerang, splash, and spout to close off the distance. However, this playstyle isn't very viable since, as a liquid player, you should be up close and personal. Passive liquid playstyle. As a passive liquid, you're constantly alternating between defensive and aggressive play. If you're attempting a passive style, it's generally better to lean towards the offensive side of things. Plant subability. Plant can be played in two ways: defensively and aggressively. However, the only truly viable approach is offensive. The only worthwhile move Plant has is Ensnare, which can be easily evaded, making this the worst sub. Therefore, you need to be creative and unpredictable to make it slightly viable. As a Plant user, your main scroll should always be Liquid Tentacles due to the lack of damage Plant inflicts if your opponent constantly avoids Ensnare. Stat spreads for each playstyle. Aggressive Frost stat spreads: 398 Strength, 253 Defense, 149 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. 398 Strength, 228 Defense, 174 Stamina, with Mastery Scroll or Liquid Tentacles Scroll. Or 398 Strength, 275 Defense, 127 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. Defensive Frost stat spreads: 388 Strength, 325 Defense, 87 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. 350 Strength, 375 Defense, 75 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. Or 388 Strength, 320 Defense, 92 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. Pure Trading stat spreads: 388 Strength, 325 Defense, 87 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. 375 Strength, 375 Defense, 50 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. Or 398 Strength, 350 Defense, 52 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. Long Range Frost stat spreads: 398 Strength, 317 Defense, 85 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. 398 Strength, 275 Defense, 127 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. Or 350 Strength, 325 Defense, 75 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. Passive Frost stat spreads: 350 Strength, 350 Defense, 100 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. These are my personal stats since I play passively. 375 Strength, 325 Defense, 75 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. Or 398 Strength, 270 Defense, 132 Stamina with Mastery Scroll. Plant subability. Aggressive playstyle, stat spread: 345 Strength, 325 Defense, 130 Stamina with Liquid Tentacles Scroll. Finally, plant subability. Defensive playstyle, stat spread: 345 Strength, 325 Defense, 130 Stamina with Liquid Tentacles Scroll.
Flame is a powerhouse element that focuses on bursting down their opponents from long range. They have the strongest neutral in the game from moves such as Swing Kick and Flame Ball. In addition, flames have some of the best mobility in the game, thanks to Flame Fly. Regardless of the sub-element, your main tactics are using Swing Kick and Flame Ball from long range and neutral, as these are some of the fastest and high-damaging moves in the game, especially when paired with Roar. It is important to make the most use out of Roar possible when active, as it gives flames a staggering 50% boost on all moves minus sub-abilities. Keep in mind that Roar is only active for 33 seconds, and has a 87 seconds cooldown upon the power boost fading. Meaning you will want to be as aggressive as possible during this 33 seconds window to take down your opponents through your sheer power. Another strong move in neutral is Flame Breath. While the move may seem weak to newer players due to the loss of mobility while active, it is actually one of the strongest moves in the game. Flame Breath has the potential to tear down your opponent from close range faster than any other flame move, especially when Roar is active. When you achieve an advantageous state from your strong neutral, a great rush down tactic is Flame Fly to Fly Kick. Due to the massive damage Fly Kick does to the opponent if both hits land on target. Please note that Fly Kick can be punished by a patient player, so use this option with caution. Moving on to the differences in sub-abilities. Thunder is stronger at closer ranges than Explosion, due to Thunder Strike having the highest damage in the game out of any single damage move. Explosion, on the other hand, is superior from longer range due to the reach of their combustion moves. While tempting, Thunderbolt and Thunder Strike are generally better when aiming at the opponent's feet rather than directly at them, as the direct hitbox is difficult in land and in some cases inconsistent. When aiming for the feet, you guarantee the area of effect hitbox to activate. Explosion users should keep their distance when possible, and attempt to burst their opponents down from afar as much as possible. Here are some Flame stats I recommend. Flame has the most flexibility out of any element in my opinion in terms of stats, so feel free to modify these based on your own personal preferences. For Thunder users I recommend 385 Strength, 292 Defense, 123 Stamina with Roar Scroll. 385 Strength, 350 Defense, 65 Stamina with Roar Scroll. 367 Strength, 350 Defense, 83 Stamina with Roar Scroll. For Explosion users I recommend 385 Strength, 350 Defense, 65 Stamina with Roar Scroll. 341 Strength, 318 Defense, 141 Stamina with Roar Scroll. Lastly, 367 Strength, 317 Defense, 116 Stamina with Roar Scroll. Wind is a versatile element that is heavily matchup dependent. For this reason, there is no clear and cut right way to play Wind. The playstyle with Wind is ever changing and depends on a multitude of factors, including but not limited to your opponent's stat spread, their sub-ability, and their elemental itself. In general, some ideas for Wind is to use Gust, Wind Blow, Block, and Glider Whip in neutral. With a specific combination of Block and Glider Whip being nearly unpunishable with most moves. Be the leaf, and victory will be yours. I am now going to let my expert Grey 1FX take it from here.
At the highest level, Wind is the hardest element in the game. Wind is the only element where you can apply constant up-close pressure onto your opponent, and have a move to cover every single option they select. While water can cover options as well, it lacks the ability to stay on top of your opponent in the same way Wind can. Its long cooldowns mean you have to back off. My specific playstyle of Rushdown Wind revolves around a high stamina build and has the highest risk/reward out of any other style in the game. If played right, this is the only way Wind is able to kill top defensive players. However, it requires a good reaction speed and understanding of what moves counter what. Wind has a major flaw, which is that without the heavy spam of Glider Whip, which is easily punishable, you cannot under normal circumstances out-damage someone's healing, especially if they have 5 health point regeneration or shield. To counteract this, you need to be able to force options out of the opponent, even if that option is only predictable dashes that you can blow or swipe. The general playstyle is simple. First, play a basic neutral where you are spacing your whirlwinds or wind blows at correct distances to not get hit, and mostly just being annoying. The goal in this phase isn't to do much damage, you'll probably only get a quarter or a fifth of your opponent's HP at this stage. It's to force out some stamina or cooldowns from your opponent. The key to this stage is mostly just knowing your ranges and not really what moves you select because it's incredibly important that you take no or minimal damage here. Otherwise, your advantage state will be less impactful. The specifics on what you do when you go aggressive vary for each matchup. However, the general game plan stays the same. You rush with melee and force them to either use a move on you to get you out of their face or force them to dash predictably as I said earlier, which can allow for high damage blows if you use it in the direction that they will land. Most of the time, however, they will use whatever close range move they have to push you away, and this is where the matchup knowledge comes in handy. In the matchup of Wind vs Rock, you begin your rush by sprinting back and forth in front of your opponent, running in and out of rock punch range. Your goal here is to get some melee chip damage, then sprint back just as they do a horizontal rock punch. With good spacing and good prediction, you will always be able to dodge this. Running back and forth and generally randomizing your movement will also make it near impossible for rocks to hit consistent cuffs on you, and you will bait them incredibly easy. Wind benefits from a wall more than Rock does, using a whirlwind or glider whip behind the wall. It's imperative to count the cooldowns of Rock Cuffs and Rock Punch, as these are the two most crucial ones. Once you're adept at understanding ranges, it's effective to whirlwind their Rock Punch, provided you don't get hit. If ever they use Rock Wake, perform a tornado near them. Directly on top of them might result in launch damage. For Wind vs Flame, the match starts with instant rushing. Flame excels in neutral, so you want to speed up the pace of the fight. You have a move that counters any option they select, so you have nothing to fear. When rushing, it's incredibly important to not melee every single second you can. Because you are stuck in a short animation, this will become predictable and you will take a fly kick for doing it. Utilize double jump as much as possible against flames, and use glide or flight to close off the distance. It is important to never use gust or glider swipe against flames, unless you must be defensive, as the extra distance caused by gust push is not worth the damage inflicted, due to increasing the gap between yourself and your flame opponent. It is important to constantly be fighting flames as much as possible just outside fly kick range. Glide or flight can also be used to bait your flame opponent by acting like you are flying into bait a fly kick, then going full offensive when fly kick is on cooldown. Against flame breath, I recommend using the block to glider whip combo, as it is nearly unpunishable even if the flame breath is dropped early. In wind versus liquid, it's important to respect their close range potential, as a well-timed freeze punish will likely result in a loss. However, wind is the only elemental with the potential to dodge liquid wave at close range thanks to their double jump. It is important to use your superior mobility to take down liquids. Due to the recent changes to shield with the patching of shield abuse, this matchup will need to be re-evaluated in the future. For wind versus wind, this ditto matchup is entirely mind games and prediction. Figure out as early as possible what type of player they are. There are 3 types of wind versus wind players: a defensive wind, offensive wind, and a bait wind. Of course, players will swap between these 3 styles throughout a spar, but everyone has a preference for one. In terms of stats, strength is straightforward. You aim for the maximum blow damage, which can be achieved at 382 points. Defense, on the other hand, is more subjective. The best defense is the lowest possible defense you feel comfortable playing with. As for stamina, the more, the better. Lastly, remember that wind's effectiveness can significantly be affected by your ping. Above 125 to 130 ping, melees become very inconsistent, meaning you may not rack up enough damage anymore to secure a kill. For this reason, wind is by far the element most heavily affected by ping. Here are some stat recommendations with wind. 382 strength, 335 defense, and 83 stamina with mastery scroll. 382 strength, 258 defense, 160 stamina with flight scroll. Lastly, 382 strength, 300 defense, 118 stamina with flight scroll.
Just kidding. If you want to learn about chi blocking, I recommend simply watching my non-elemental showcase guide. As for throwing knives, I plan on creating an updated guide in the future after the release of Revamp 3. Thank you once again to Grey1FX, Thunder Sparksdown, and Hunter of the Desert for their assistance in making this video, and thanks for watching.